We now return to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the radio show discussing the honest truth about Illinois policy and politics. Here's AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Ted Dabrowski, Vice President of Policy at the Illinois Policy Institute, and Ted on Friday. The Chicago Teachers Union, had their show strike, one-day walkout, whatever you want to call it, in advance of perhaps a more substantial work stoppage in May. And the basis for this, we know, is about who picks up which percentage of the 9% that teachers pay, or is paid on behalf of teachers, into the pension fund for Chicago public school teachers. But that's not how it's being sold. Here is Karen Lewis on Chicago Tonight this week, suggesting why they did what they did on Friday.
Let me just tell you the whole point. This is a call for revenue for funding the schools and social services in this state appropriately. And this is not just from pre-K to 12, this is also higher ed. This is the MAP grants that our students, many of whom graduated from CPS schools, are not getting because of this budget crisis and the fact that the governor has completely shut down the budget process until he gets his wish on anti-union agenda.
So it's public sector union bosses of the world unite. Jesse Sharkey was on our program on Chicago's Morning Answer this week, the morning show I do with Amy Jacobson, and Sharkey put it in similarly apocalyptic terms.
We're asking people to take a stand around a social issue, which is whether or not we're going to have public schools in the city and whether we're going to fund them.
So there you go. He's the vice president of the Teachers Union. She's the Teachers Union boss. And the matter is, if you don't have a graduated state income tax, if you don't have a city income tax, if you don't have a financial transactions tax, if you don't raise property taxes, in the Marxist fashion that they would like to see all taxes raised, then public schools, the $6 billion we spend on CPS right now, it's all going to just evaporate into the ether.
Dan, those comments and what they're doing, and if you track this over the last few months, it's just amazing. You don't even know where to start on this. But I think the key thing, one of the key things, is that they're having an illegal strike right now. It's not a strike about work conditions. It's not a strike even about, they're claiming it's not even a strike about pay. They're going straight to, we want more tax hikes. We want to change the way government works. And it's very much a political strike. Right,
and they're trying to throw in with universities and social service providers because they don't want this to appear as cynical and self-interested as it actually is, which is the deal that we have now, where we pay a third, just under a third actually, of the pension contributions, and the Chicago public school system picks up a little bit more than 2/3, and we'll put in, this is your research, which is just staggering. It really brings it home. The CPS teacher retiring today after 30 years of service, paying $133,000 in, of which more than 2/3 is picked up by the school districts, so taxpayers, and they will receive, on average, $2.1 million back in benefits. $133,000 in, $2.1 million back, and Karen Lewis and Jesse Sharkey want to make it about the kids and the universities and the social service providers. This is about the guaranteed gold-plated defined benefit plans that teachers have, and very little more.
Yeah, this is really about taxpayers can't afford CPS in its current structure, and things have to change. And 30 years ago, the teachers got this new benefit where instead of the teachers paying their required share, the school district started paying it on their behalf, just another benefit. Well, that benefit's no longer affordable, and if you see what's happening to Chicago, right, it can't pay its debts, it can't pay its salaries, it can't pay its pensions, something has to change. And that's really what taxpayers, in effect, are asking for. But instead of getting that kind of change, Karen Lewis and the team want just to keep taxing people more and more. And it's just, morally not right.
Well, in 1997, the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund was fully funded, 100%.
Fully funded, yep. Had all the money it needed.
And today, or at least as of 2014, it's 50% funded. So what happened?
Well, what happened was, and this is a tricky situation, but basically CPS decided to stop putting money into the pension system. Why? Well, most people think that money was just wasted, just spent somewhere. Well, where does the money go? The money went for higher and higher salaries. And that's why the unions didn't complain that the pensions weren't being funded. because the money was getting to its members. And the higher the salaries go, the higher the pension benefits in the future go. So there was a nice little game going on between the teachers union and the administration. But now we've kind of reached the point where, oops, we can't keep playing that game anymore because now CPS can't pay both the salaries and the pensions. And so that's why we're in trouble.
Right, and so they're not going to take ownership for that little game they play that you just nicely described. So now it's the guy who showed up a year ago, it's Governor Rauner. He's the boogeyman. He wasn't there in 1997, and he wasn't even there in 2014, where you cut the funding for your pension fund in half by that game that you played, but now he's the bad guy, and all roads lead to Governor Rauner because they need someone to bail them out. And what people should be hearing when they hear the Karen Lewises and the Jesse Sharkeys of the world is, here's what we did to scam you. Now we want you to bail us out on top so that we can continue the scam.
Well, that's what drives me crazy is that they're trying to make everybody think that the taxpayers didn't put in the money. The taxpayers put in more than enough money to fund CPS in the past. And, we ran the numbers and you can see it. But now they want taxpayers to think, hey, you guys didn't put in enough. You need to put in money again. And I think that's what's really fair. And they're using Rauner as that tool to get that extra money.
Some Chicago Public School teachers actually get it. We had the opportunity again on my morning show this week to talk to Mike DeRoss, who's a social science teacher at Lane Tech, who chose not to participate in the walkout on Friday and the protestations and whatnot, and also chose not to any longer belong to the Chicago Teachers Union.
Well, I actually felt that when I decided I wasn't going to go, the only honorable thing to do would be to contact the union and resign, which I did through email, and told them that I wanted to resign from their bleeping socialist union.
And? How was that received?
And they sent me back an email telling me how I'd have to pay fair share dues, which I already knew. And, I mean, if that's the law, that's the law. I don't like it, but it's the law. And how they weren't a socialist union.
They're not a socialist union.
Oh, really? Did they say anything else in that email?
Because that was it. So is socialist because they're further left than that, or socialist in a different, not socialist in a different way?
I don't know, but there's more to it. I mean, why are we throwing in with other groups that are just going to dilute the message of the Chicago teachers? I'll guarantee you, if we got a bunch of kids that just crawled out of their mother's basement in the march, scuffling with police everywhere, they weren't going to get the press, not the teachers.
Yeah, so that was in advance of the action on Friday. But there are rank-and-file teachers, to the example of Mike DeRoss and others, that kind of get it. Maybe they're afraid to stand up and be heard. He mentioned that, look, a lot of teachers at Lane Tech that I speak with agree with me, but their attitude is, look, I got 10 more years in this place, and I'm not going to rock the boat because I don't, want to suffer the political or economic consequences.
Well, I think, there's so much pressure that's borne by the unions on teachers, and I think there's probably a lot more teachers. And we see anonymous comments a lot. Like it's great that Michael DeRoss has spoken up. They're so scared to take on the unions, and there's a reason why. Karen Lewis is out there saying if you cross the picket line, we are going to kick you out of the union. You're going to lose your liability insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And she's a pretty tough militant leader, and it's tough to take her on. And
thanks to the Supreme Court decision and Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association, Mike DeRoss and others will still continue to have to pay, even if they're no longer represented by the union.
Oh, that's right. And if Mike DeRoss has to pay a lot of money still to the unions, in theory, that's for the unions to represent him on the teacher contracts. But the reality is Karen Lewis is using a lot of that money to go out and fight the politics, and it might be politics that Michael DeRoss and others don't agree with.
So what about retirement age? Is that one of the areas where structural reform must occur, the retirement age at which CPS teachers can walk?
Yeah, if you don't do the big overhaul and move to 401k style plans, one of the changes that has to happen is we have to increase retirement ages. Most teachers, and this is not just at the CPS but across the state, are able to retire in their 50s, 58, 59. And, it's not the teacher's fault that they get to retire at that age. That's what was negotiated. But taxpayers can't afford to pay that anymore because teachers and people are living longer and longer. So if people are retiring in their 50s and living for 25 and 30 years, it's bankrupting the system.